Hello there. I'm Kios, the Ronin Beatmaker, and welcome to this episode of Ronin Review. And this episode, we're going to discuss Sisu. Now, I am a sucker for a good film about killing Nazis. Unfortunately, the US is not too privy on making those types of films as they are currently funding Nazis. Let me repeat that again for you guys. Uh, the US is not making any films about killing Nazis because the US is currently funding Nazis. So, yeah, shout out to the crew over in Poland for this wonderful, straightforward, modern, with a splice and dash of classic 80s action vibes and cinema. Now, for many of those out there, if you haven't seen Sisu, and if you're into solid action films, especially those about killing Nazis, I highly recommend you guys check out this film, for it is a fun little ride. Now, what's wonderful about Sisu, sorry, if you've seen the trailer, then you'll know what I'm talking about. What's fun about this film is that you don't need there's not a lot of plot to it, uh, and the story is right there in front of you from the beginning. You know what the story's about. Old grizzled war vet near the end of World War II. He's a miner, stumbles on some gold, and eventually winds himself being pursued by Nazis that are retreating out of Poland and the Finnish areas. Apologize, my geography on that area is not too well versed, so I might be getting some things wrong. But I know it's at that time that the Nazis are retreating, and they're pretty much just just burning and destroying everything on their way out. And what's great about it, for me personally, is when he eventually ends up getting like the moment where he just kind of loses it. And many people, if you've seen the trailer, it's in the trailer. It's I'm not really going to be spoiling too much in this film, but the moment he loses it, really because there's not really too much to spoil, honestly. I'm not going to spoil too many of the crazy action scenes because I want you guys to enjoy those for yourselves. But pretty much to say, like, when he loses it, it's just like this moment where like um, the boogeyman is reawakened, so to speak. When you see him at the beginning, he's just very dormant, very calm, very secluded person. But then the moment he just the boogeyman inside him turns on, it's just a whole nother beast comes to life. And you can really see that in the way the actor portrays Sisu from the miner into this killing machine, to say the least. And what's funny is like throughout the film, the Nazis that are pursuing him for the gold, they don't really believe the story that is told because on their way out, they have a bunch of women that they're holding captive as their concubine slaves, and they tell them this story about this guy, and how he took out all these Russian soldiers, and like the Poles, no one could stop him, they couldn't control him. after he lost his family. And like, the Germans, they're kind of just like, yeah, okay, whatever. But as the story progresses and the violence intensifies, they begin to kind of realize like there's almost something supernatural about this guy. And one of my favorite scenes that I really enjoyed was the scene in the pond. And I really enjoyed that scene because you have this very intense life and death situation with him, and he's essentially kind of fighting for his life in the pond, and the Germans send soldiers in a boat to find his body because they kind of wounded him in the pursuit. And the way his capability of surviving underwater and taking a chance to go to the surface knowing full well that they could they could get him, it's a really crafty scene. And that's what I love about this film is the way they kind of take the survivability of Rambo. How Rambo can take so many hits, but he keeps on going. He pulls himself together. And you see that with this character where he's taking hits, but he's able to pull himself back together. And like, there's something what's kind of fascinating about this character is that, he's not someone that's fantastical to the imagination, because during World War II and even World War One, there were very a number of soldiers who were unkillable. No matter the circumstances that they were put in, they just could not get killed. And so when you read these stories about these famous soldiers, there was a British soldier from World War One, lost an arm, lost fingers to frostbite, kept on fighting, lost an eye, kept on fighting. You have so many stories of these incredible soldiers. I'm trying to see if I have his autobiography in my wish list, because when I heard about this guy, I was like, man, I definitely want to read about this guy. He seems like someone you could really gain a lot of insight on how to be a true leader and how to be a survivalist. Um, Apologize that I'm scrolling my book list. Okay, here we go. The Life and Times of Lieutenant General Adrian Carton de Wiot, soldier and diplomat. Now, this dude is, his story is really wild and fascinating. Um, and so, yeah, he was a British soldier. And so, when you look at this story and you look at some of the scenarios and situations Sisu finds himself in, you could go to the history books and you could find um, a soldier that is of the same caliber, if not more. Look at Doss, the medic for the U.S. in the Pacific. I mean, what's crazy about it is the director said that they didn't include some of his war stories because they didn't think people would actually believe that he did them. And that's something that is kind of crazy, because if you've seen the film, he does some pretty incredible things, and the fact that he survives every encounter all is enough to make your head spin. But when you find out that the director didn't include certain events because he didn't think that the audience would believe that he did that he survived that. Um, and there are so many stories throughout history of incredible soldiers who are of that type of caliber. And I think what's wonderful about Sisu is that it exudes and kind of memorializes. I'm sorry, I'm butchering that word, but you can then look to the history books and be like, wow, there was a guy just like Sisu. Like, holy smokes! Like, the amount of stories that you could hear about these incredible soldiers during World War I and two. In World War II, there's a, I can't remember the YouTube channel's name, but I was listening to a lot of their stories, and it was listening to these soldiers that fought in the Pacific, and hearing some of the encounters that they faced. And I remember one story with this guy, and talking about, what was it? Was it Guadalcanal that they were on? I'm not sure which one, but how his friend got hit with a tank shell but was still alive, and just craziness. Or this one story with this Pacific veteran, and how they caught this Japanese officer, and they kept on moving because they were still, well, the squad, they were patrolling and hitting. They were just moving, and they told him, "Hey, we're gonna keep moving. Take him along over there and put him down, and be quick about it because we're not staying here." And so, he essentially takes him to an area, and he pats the guy down. He finds that the guy has his photo, and the man is refusing to give up the photo. So he eventually, he puts down this Japanese officer, and the photo that the officer had, was them at these Chinese officers at the Great Wall of China, and in front of them were a pile of heads, and they were posing behind the pile of heads. So if you're not aware of some of the horrific um, um, acts of depravity and terrorism that the Japanese Imperial Army inflicted upon the Chinese during the late 1930s and into 1940s, I highly recommend you take a look into some of the incredible stories about it. There's a book called The Grape of Nanking. If you're curious about some of the horrific stories around that time. But the point that I'm making is that Sisu, despite some of its fantastical elements about it, uh, there is a level of believability because of the fact that we have stories of soldiers who have survived some horrific injuries and were still able to fight, still able to lead, whatever it may be. So we have to give, we have to give our respects, and we have to give credit to them for allowing us to create, a lot of these incredible, action characters, whether it's, I apologize, whether it's Rambo, whether it's Arnold Schwarzenegger's character in Commando, which is amazing film, Sisu, whatever it may be. All right, fine, I'll add Steven Seagal in there. Oh, man. But, we have to give credit to these types of, actual historical figures, because they allow our imagination to create incredible fun films like Sisu. And that's what makes Sisu such a great film, is that you can look to the classic 80s action films, and then look to history, and enjoy the story that much more. And one thing that I really enjoyed is the level of detail they went into the time period. This wasn't like, this ain't no Bridgerton, okay? So the you didn't have to worry about any of that kind of stuff. It was lore accurate, or historically accurate, when it comes to that time period. And one thing I really enjoyed about Sisu was he was almost like a video game character, where like you start off with like a main melee weapon, and then you get like other different weapons, but you always still keep that main melee weapon. And his melee weapon was a pickaxe. And I love that throughout the entire film, that pickaxe stays with him. And the action sequences are very fun, and they're gory. Each one is very unique, um, and definitely plays to his strengths and weaknesses, and having him to constantly adapt. That's one thing that I really liked about this film, was that um, his survivability was also in his ability to adapt and to outmaneuver and outthink, and quite frankly, the will to live. I think that's one thing that I think we kind of um, this film does a great job of encapsulating the will to live and survive. Something that, you when you listen to a lot of these historical figures who were, are veterans of their wars of that time period, you hear about their will to survive, this drive that they have in them. And that's something that, you really see in Sisu, that makes you like, you get you feel, you feel, I was about to cuss, but you feel effing manly. Like, you're like, I want to, I want to be like him. And that's something that's really fun about this film. And there's some like little minor plot twists, nothing crazy or extravagant, but more like, oh shit, like I wasn't expecting that. Some of it is more in like the way he overcomes certain situations, or even with the Germans, and some of the actions that they do. But one thing that I love, like I was saying earlier, is that the slow buildup of fear within this German company, and the realization that they are dealing with something that's real but almost feels supernatural. Especially when it comes to the plane scene. That's all I'm gonna say. Well, there's several plane scenes, but the first plane scene, the fear, the fear registers in their eyes. You see it. It really does a great job of that. And then I'll give kudos to the German commander for doing a really good job of playing, this very evil, vindictive, twisted character. And what's funny about it is even the subtle background characters, even the way they acted, and mannerisms and moments, you actually get a little bit of story detail about them, especially with the tank operator, the tank driver. There's a little moment with him, and you're like, oh wow, which was interesting. There's almost this moment of, it's not sympathy, but it's a level of respect that the German soldiers give to Sisu at one point. It's really interesting. That's one thing that I'll definitely give the director credit for, is that with certain characters, even though there was not a lot of dialogue, you could get a little bit of a background of who they were, or some of the horrific things they went through, and why they kind of seem the way they are. Little subtle things, nothing crazy. This is a pretty straightforward action film. Like I said, the main character, he doesn't say anything. So, but the other characters do, and just subtle body language and just things like that. And as you see on the front, on the screen, um, there are some female characters. They're there, like I said earlier, but you don't have to worry about any like weird, Mary Sue kind of stuff going on, like, that kind of ultra, feminist kind of behavior. There's none of that in this film. It's very realistic, straightforward, and their time to shines are pretty cool. I definitely give it credit for the women. They know how to handle their weapons well. That would make sense for that time period, since they were pretty much, a lot of them were probably, you could tell, probably were or former guerrilla fighters. So there's a lot of really cool little moments in the film that, I think if you're out there and you're interested, you'll be like, oh, that's really cool. Oh, that's dope. You'll enjoy it. It's a solid, fun film. I really enjoyed it. The practicality of it was great. There were a lot of practical effects. The fight scenes were fun, and you know they do a good job of playing into the fact that he's a much older man, but there still is a level of he still got that dog in him. He still got that dog in him. So you can't you can't downplay that. You can't downplay it. Those old dogs, you can't sleep on them. And he definitely exudes that. So I really recommend it for anyone out there who really enjoys, just a solid, fun action film. Straight to the point. It's definitely one of those. It's a great film to watch with your significant other, your girl, your boy, your X, Y, and Z. I don't know anymore. It's starting to get funky out there, but I highly recommend it. It's a fun film to watch, especially with someone who's not into gory films as I did, and they're just like, "Oh my god, this is crazy," and I was like, "I know, killing Nazis is always a good thing, and always oh so beautiful." I hope you enjoyed this episode of a Ronin review. And if you made it this far and you've liked what you heard and you're interested in seeing this film or have seen this film, please hit that like button and leave a comment with Sisu. And please make sure to subscribe and ring that notification bell. And until next time, stay positive, stay focused, stay true, and much love.